This story takes place 27 years after the First Corporate War. The Nest by Sean Carrier. Chapter 8. The team finally pulled into Martha's Corner Bartertown just before 1100 hours. To call Martha's Corner a town was being overly generous, as the whole place was really just a cluster of tents, campers and trailers along the side of a dirt mountain road. The only permanent structure was an abandoned, 40-meter-tall observation tower topped with various antennae and a satellite dish. The tower had been built just after the Corporate War by the Salsterbriggs research firm in order to study the sea zone that lay another 10 clicks west. A lack of funding forced Salsterbriggs to abandon the observation tower after only 2 years, but those 2 years were long enough for Martha's Corner to sprout up around it, and it's remained ever since. Every other month, a full fuel tanker would get trucked up to Martha's Corner and the empty one would get trucked back. Next to the tanker was a half-tin shack, half-heavy canvas tent Mikey the gas pump man had called home for over 20 years. Mikey had heard the engines of Laura's truck and bench presses van approaching from a click away, had thrown on his cleanest dirty shirt, come out of what he called his house, and was already standing by his beloved pumps as the two vehicles pulled in. Mikey's was the closest thing to a gas station for over 50 kilometers, and he was half of Martha's Corner's economy. The other half of the Bartertown's economy was on the other side of the abandoned tower. A 15-meter-long transport trailer up on cinder blocks and tree trunks that served as a general store and, sometimes, restaurant. This belonged to Karen Lynn, Mikey's ex-wife. The clientele that kept Martha's Corner open were thrill seekers and souvenir hunters who braved the radiation levels to explore the abandoned suburbs along the outer edge of the sea zone. Most of the residents of this throwback to Hoovervilles made their way by hunting, trapping and guiding these above-mentioned urban explorers to just outside the abandoned suburbs. On this particular day, a trio of very unhealthy-looking tour guides were standing in front of the general store, drinking beer and barbecuing a hunk of deer meat over an oil drum fire. The team could smell the cooking meat as they exited their vehicles to stretch their legs and take a leak before having to put their radiation suits on. Bench Press was the first to say something.
Oh, that deer meat sure does smell good.
Don't forget where we are, Bench Press.
Slick said back. Then Sam chimed in with,
I bet ya that deer meat's got enough rads to make a Geiger counter's needle dance a jig.
Bench Press looked over at the three guys standing around the oil drum barbecue and noticed for the first time he couldn't tell if they were middle-aged or really old. None had any hair. They slouched as if constantly on the verge of losing their balance, and they all had the same blank, almost confused expression on their faces. It took him a second longer of staring, but that's when Bench Press noticed all these men wore were boxer shorts, wife-beaters and hiking boots. One of the three locals looked over at the team and smiled at Bench Press, showing off a mouth with a grand total of 3 teeth in it. After politely nodding back, Bench Press turned to look at Sam and Slick. Bench Press shuddered slightly before whispering,
That motherfucker could eat corn on the cob through a tennis racket.
And me without my banjo.
Sam snickered back. Laura was making use of Karen Lynn's ladies' room, and this left Sam, Slick and Bench Press to busy themselves with watering the local flowers. Meanwhile, Kyle spoke with Mikey the gas pump man.
Seen anyone pass through here in the last 24 hours?
Kyle asked as he watched the old man top up the tank of Laura's truck. Mikey, having dealt with trackers and bounty hunters in the past, knew just how to handle the situation.
Oh dear. You know, Sonny, my memory ain't what it used to be.
The old man said. Kyle had expected this, as he was already pulling out his wallet. Kyle pulled a $100 bill out from his wallet before asking,
Could this buy you some memory medicine?
Mikey the gas pump man looked at the $100 bill being waved in front of him, glanced at the few other bills in Kyle's wallet, and answered,
Oh, Sonny, memory medicine's real expensive, you know.
Kyle pulled a second $100 bill out of his wallet. This caused Mikey's eyebrows to spring up in a genuinely phony eureka expression.
Now that you mention it, round about 1600 hours yesterday, a trio riding in a dark blue SUV did pass through. They got some gas and bought some ration bars from the bitch next door for slapping on some radiation suits and taking off toward the C-zone.
Mikey said before using his free hand to snatch the twin C-notes out from between Kyle's thumb and forefinger and pocketing the cash just as quickly.
What can you tell me about the trio?
Kyle asked as he folded his wallet up and began tucking it back in his pocket. Old Mikey pulled the nozzle out of Laura's truck as he bit his lip and scratched his forehead.
Oh, Don. I may just need the extra strength memory medicine, you understand.
Mikey lamented with rehearsed ease. Kyle did his best not to let his irritation show as he took his wallet out again, opened it and pulled another $100 bill out. Mikey yoinked the lovely green bill and pocketed it before answering.
2 men and 1 girl.
He then added,
Poor, skinny little thing.
Kyle didn't feel like playing the memory medicine game anymore. So, he just pulled another $100 bill out of his wallet.
Did they use any names?
The young bounty hunter asked. Mikey helped himself to the money before sticking the nozzle into Bench Press's van.
The girl didn't say anything. She just sat in the back of the SUV, looking kinda sad.
Mikey described.
Of the 2 men, oh yeah, the young one kept calling the tall, good-looking one boss.
Tall and good-looking were definitely part of Danny Blue's description, and that was enough to convince Kyle their target had indeed come through Martha's Corner.
Did anybody else pass through after the trio in the SUV?
Kyle asked with more than a hint of urgency in his voice. Mikey looked down again, scratched his forehead and said,
Oh, this patchy old memory of mine.
Kyle grunted his resentment as he pulled a fourth $100 bill out of his wallet. With a quick hand and nimble fingers, Mikey snatched the $100 bill and pocketed it. He then answered,
Nope. No one else came through.
Kyle folded his wallet up and was about to tuck it back into his pocket when Mikey pulled the nozzle out of Bench Press's van and held out his free hand.
That'll be $340 for the gas there, Sonny.
The old man announced. The young bounty hunter remained silent as he dug through his wallet and eventually pulled out $350. Kyle handed the money to Mikey the gas pump man and said,
Keep the change.
The young bounty hunter then walked to the back of Bench Press's van where the rest of the team were already gathered.
Okay, everyone. Let's put our suits on.
Kyle said in as upbeat and chipper a tone as he could force himself to. Bench Press opened the rear doors of his van and began handing out the suitcases containing everyone's new radiation suits. The team remained gathered in a small circle, placed their suitcases on the ground and opened them. As Kyle opened his suitcase, he gave his first official mission order.
After your suits are on, get your weapons and keep them on you for the rest of the job.
No one questioned the order. If Kyle ever said to stand ready, there was a reason. Slick was first to get his suit on, and he went to fetch his BVH bullpup rifle from its case in the back of Laura's truck. The team sniper had selected this weapon because it was equipped with a Gen 16 digital scope that could be synced to the head-up display inside the visor of his radiation suit's helmet. This meant Slick could point his rifle behind him and aim accurately without having to turn around. This was a feature he was anxious to try out. Ever competitive, Sam was second to get his suit on and he'd already secured his equipment webbing over it. Sam was now carefully placing his hand grenade on a chain over the helmet and around his shielded neck as he made his way to the front of Bench Press's van. Sam reached into the van and grabbed his automatic 12-gauge shotgun complete with a 50-round drum magazine. As a breacher, Sam liked this gun because it could fire explosive rounds. On one job to capture a crew of truckjackers, Sam had to cover Kyle's escape from a 1%er clubhouse by unloading a full magazine of M02 mini grenades into a row of motorcycles parked outside. Kyle and Laura had gotten their suits on at the same time, and were now helping Bench Press who was struggling with his. The garment was fine height-wise, but didn't have enough slack for the medic's bodybuilder physique. Bench press complained the suit was too tight, feeling like a second skin that just didn't stretch enough.
Only 3 sizes in the army.
Kyle said as he secured bench press's helmet to the shoulder of his suit.
Too big, too small, and out of stock.
With a bit of effort, Laura had bench press's equipment webbing on over his shoulders. After finally getting the big man suited up, all 3 began walking to their vehicles. Being a pacifist, bench press didn't carry a weapon. For personal protection on missions, he kept an old-school police taser in a custom hip holster like a 6-shooter. As the team's medic, bench press also carried syringes of painkillers and sedatives that he kept in a pouch along his equipment webbing. There'd been more than one occasion when bench press had to dope up a prisoner just to keep them quiet. Still adjusting to the tight fit of his new radiation suit, bench press walked awkwardly to the driver's door of his van. He grabbed his taser from the dashboard charger and checked the battery level before climbing in. Kyle and Laura walked back to her truck while getting used to their own bulky and heavy radiation suits. Laura worked the control pad on the left forearm of her suit, waited half a second, then asked,
"What's up, boss?"
Kyle heard Laura over the speakers in his helmet, and knew she referred to the weapons order. Kyle quickly scanned his helmet's head-up display and saw she'd established a private channel between them, muting their conversation from the others.
I don't think we're the first team they sent in after Danny Blue.
Kyle answered. Laura spoke calmly, masking how unsettled this news made her.
"What makes you think that, boss?"
Kyle wasn't the first bounty hunter Laura had worked with, and she'd seen how badly things could turn out when more than one tracker went after the same target.
When I listened to the recording of the second sat phone call made from inside the C-zone, I could hear gunfire in the background.
Kyle explained. Laura's next comment was more to reassure herself.
"Could have been between members of Danny Blue's zone gang. Like a mutiny, maybe."
Doubt it.
Kyle said.
Colonel Drake didn't tell me about Danny Blue's escape until 8 hours after it happened. Plenty of time to have sent someone else.
Since their conversation was over their suits' radios, Kyle and Laura could keep speaking with each other despite walking away from each other. Kyle walked around to the passenger side of Laura's truck and made his way to the front passenger door as Laura just walked straight to the driver's door.
"I guess I'll be checking my mirrors a bit more often,"
Laura said. The wheelwoman climbed into her truck, sat in and adjusted her driver's seat to accommodate the bulky new radiation suit she was wearing. Laura's weapon was strapped to the truck ceiling just behind the sun visor, a sawed-off, double-barrel 10-gauge shotgun. Laura reached up to her portable cannon with her gloved right hand and patted it reassuringly. Laura didn't bother checking to see if her gun was loaded, as she always kept buckshot in one barrel and a slug in the other.
Just keep your edge on, Laura,
Kyle said as he sat in the front passenger seat. Kyle then switched his and Laura's private channel off before pulling his weapon out of the custom door holster, a GAC 10mm submachine gun. Kyle carefully looked over his GAC, removing and checking the 20-round magazine after making sure there wasn't one in the chamber. Kyle had to take a moment to appreciate how well the gloves of the radiation suit allowed for easy hand functions, as they were barely thicker than leather riding gloves. Good to know his index finger could fit inside the trigger guard. Satisfied with the condition of his weapon, Kyle slapped the mag back in and placed the GAC back in the door holster before turning to look at Laura as she started up her truck. The suit's helmets barely muffled the roar of the mighty engine. As soon as their suits' radios were back to the default setting, Laura and Kyle could hear Sam, Slick and Bench Press testing their own radios with a round of jokes and put-downs. Slick was sitting in the back seat of Laura's truck, his rifle resting across his lap.
"Hey, Sam.
Slick began saying into his helmet's radio.
I heard you were so ugly when you were born. The doctor slapped your mother."
"Slick, you were so ugly when you were born. When your mother asked the doctor if it was a boy or a girl, the doctor just said, nope."
Sam threw back without hesitation as he secured his automatic shotgun to the rack between the driver and passenger seats inside Bench Press's van.
Lame guys. Real lame.
Bench press offered up as he adjusted his driver's seat.
You're both lucky I let you hang out with me.
Bench press, you're lucky your mom can afford to pay us to pretend to be your friends.
Sam quipped back to bench press before following up with,
You know what? After this mission's over, I'm gonna give her a call and demand a raise.
The thud of bench press punching Sam in the shoulder was audible over everyone's radios. Bench press didn't hit the team's breacher all that hard, but the sound was amplified by the inside of the van.
You hit like my grandma.
Sam began to say through cheaply manufactured machismo while rubbing his aching shoulder.
The dead one.
Okay. Playtime's over.
Announced Kyle.
You can all hear me?
Everyone answered back with, Yes, boss.
Laura, say something.
Kyle asked to make sure Laura also came over everybody else's radios.
I wish we weren't going into the C-Zone.
Laura said half-jokingly. Everyone laughed, but more out of wordless agreement than genuine humor. With the comm check done, Kyle went over the plan. Laura's truck would be the lead vehicle with bench presses then bringing up the rear. Slick would use the scope of his sniper rifle to scan far ahead and warn Laura of any hazards. Sam would still be in charge of monitoring the weather network, keeping an eye on the wind patterns as well as the condition of their low radiation alley. Once they'd be within 100 meters from the source of the sat phone calls, Slick would go ahead on foot and get eyes on the target building. With Slick covering them, Kyle and Sam would then approach the building, storm in and conduct a two-man sweep and clear using flashbangs and rubber bullets. After Kyle and Sam would secure Danny Blue, Laura and bench press would circle around and drive up to the front of the target building. Kyle and Sam would bring Danny Blue out of the building and load him into the van. Sam would then get back in the passenger seat of bench press's van, and Kyle would get back into Laura's truck. That's when the team could finally hightail it out of there, stopping only to pick up Slick. Kyle ordered everyone to repeat the plan back to him, and they all acknowledged their roles. Satisfied, Kyle gave the word to roll out. Laura's truck pulled away from Mikey's gas station, followed by bench press's van a few seconds later. Mikey stood by his pumps and watched as the two vehicles slowly motored down the long gentle hill in the direction of the C-Zone. Mikey then patted the wad of cash in his pocket as he silently congratulated himself on taking Kyle for as much as he did. After all, it wasn't like he'd ever get a chance to rip the young bounty hunter off again.